I'd like to call to order the City of Davenport Plan and Zone Commission meeting today, Tuesday, May 1st. I'd like to first announce a couple things that I need to make sure everybody has their cell phones turned off, not just a silent, because our audio system might pick up a voicemail, might end up on our track. Another thing, I want to let everybody know that you will have an opportunity to speak as your petition comes forward, but you will be limited to about 5 minutes worth of talking time, and I would appreciate if we didn't have a lot of repetition of the same concerns. I will poll the audience after you're done speaking just to give everybody a visual as to who might be in favor of and who might be against our public hearing items. So if you could work with me on that, I appreciate it. Again, I will let everybody speak. Let's just try not to repeat the same items over and over. We will open the public hearing with roll call, please.
Connell.
Present.
Hepner.
Here.
Ingram.
Present.
Kelling.
Here.
Lammers.
Present.
Manus.
Here.
Meds excused. Quinn.
Here.
Reinhardt.
Here.
Tallman here. We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Tallman. First item is case number REZ 18-04, the request of Pheasant Creek LLC Advanced Homes for the rezoning of approximately 33.11 acres MOL located east of Jersey Meadows subdivision from A1 Agricultural District to R2 Low Density Residential District.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, I will be abstaining from these two public hearings.
Thank you, Commissioner Tallman.
Mr. Chairman, I will also be recusing myself tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner Kelling.
I will also, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Quinn. That being said, Matt?
Thank you. Maybe a quick point of order. I did prepare just one presentation and one staff report. We do have two public hearings since we have two separate zoning classifications. We have, first of all, a request to rezone 33.11 acres from A1 agriculture to R2 low density single family residential. And we also have a 5.5 acre parcel that is proposed to go from A1 to PDD plan development. I think it's important to note that since it's all part of one tract, that the focus has really been on the residential component. Development may occur on the PDD, but it's not contemplated at this point. And as we discussed at the neighborhood meeting last night, there's a lot of physical impediments, so that's probably not likely in the near term. There was also mentioned last night, and we probably need to do a little bit better job depicting but there's I would call it a remnant parcel north of the creek, south of I believe the Jersey Farms development that is proposed to remain an agricultural district since it's essentially landlocked. And this generally shows the project location east of Jersey Meadows subdivision, north of the Costco site that is now very much under construction. And again, I sure got my pointer ready, but you can see the two primary areas, the R2 area and then the PDD area. PDD does have frontage on Elmore Avenue, although even accessing Elmore, let alone crossing a street in that area is going to be problematic. Might be that the best alternative for development in this area would be to combine it with properties to the south to create larger building lots if they're necessary. Comprehensive plan updated in 2035 shows that well, it's not quite updated because it still shows Costco in RG. My apologies. So you can see it. In essence, we recognize that there'd be a regional commercial corridor along Elmore Avenue The Costco rezoning also included an amendment to the comp plan showing that property as regional commercial as well. Residential general is for the majority of the site, which really accommodates a variety of residential land uses. It's not an exclusive single-family district, but it does talk about higher intensity uses within that classification, be that schools, churches, multifamily is probably better situated along arterial streets. So this being central to the development and being single-family in nature, we won't make our recommendation, but I think there's some clear alignment with the comp plan. Again, this is the existing zoning. You can see the green in A1. The Jersey Meadows subdivision is zoned R2, residential, low density. Same as what is proposed. A lot of PDD zoning to the south. Just real quickly, R2 has a minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet, a minimum of 60 feet of frontage at the building line, and is that a 35-foot front yard setback, Wayne? He's got the zoning ordinance memorized. But anyway,
Yes.
relatively low density. By comparison, R1 is a 20,000 square foot lot area, and R3 is 7,000 square feet. This is the layout of the site as envisioned by the developer. You can see they're ways along in their planning. They have not submitted a subdivision plat, either preliminary or final, for part of this. So this may be subject to change, but as indicated last night, this is the concept they're proceeding with at this point. So again, we heard last night, we identified before the meeting is, we really want to make sure that traffic is managed and traffic generated is adequate to be served by the existing street network, and the connection points on Jersey Ridge Road. We'll be continuing to do our technical review and be presenting a recommendation at your next meeting on May 15th. With that, do you have any questions?
Commissioners, any questions? Seeing none, thank you, Matt. Would the petitioner like to step forward and explain your project?
Good evening. My name is Adam Seitz. I'm with Advance Homes and Pheasant Creek LLC. The subdivision that's proposed to you guys here is for 64 lots with a natural progression of streets that already are in place through the Jersey subdivision directly to our west. Based on, review of the plan and, preliminary meetings with cities' recommendations, eliminating cul-de-sacs, going with loop streets, we felt like that this is the best site plan that we wanted to present to you guys tonight. It is a preliminary site plan. We are open to, other ideas, but this is what we came with our best idea right now. As far as the PDD is concerned, there are quite a few limitations on that based on the sloping, the topography that's there. Pheasant Creek is actually there. That's a named creek, which would be difficult for crossing, things like that. So there are quite a few limitations on the PDD, but half of the development is already in PDD, so we're just asking to continue the zoning for that part for some congruency. So based on our research that we did, we wanted to continue the same zoning that was already currently in place for the Jersey subdivision directly to our west. So we just felt like this was the best foot forward to bring to you guys this evening. So we appreciate your time.
Do commissioners have any questions at this time? Commissioner Reinhardt.
Yeah, was there any thought possibly in the future bringing any type of access? I don't see it on the topographical, but at one time we had talked about the potential for access all the way out to Elmore.
It was discussed last night, and those were some of the issues we just discussed with limitations from the bank sloping in the right of way, the cost of a bridge, things like those issues, that it doesn't seem feasible at this time for that subdivision.
So that's something that you're not even considering at this point?
At this point, no.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Hefner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matt, I was just curious, is this covered by the overlay district?
This
The PDD.
property, I believe it's highway corridor overlay, but as far as the proposed Elmore Corners overlay, the PDD property actually would not be. The residential would not. It's everything north of Pheasant Creek is what would be in the proposed Elmore Corners overlay.
That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any additional questions at this time? Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak in favor of this petition? If you would please step forward. Seeing none, would anybody like to step forward and speak in opposition to this petition? If so, please step forward and give us your name and address and tell us your thoughts. Nobody?
It's a good thing my wife's not here. She won't let me do this. My name is Gary Aitchison. I live at 2808 East 59th Street, which is the very north east corner of Jersey Meadows subdivision. Okay. As the drawing depicted, access into the new subdivision, the 64 homes, is going to come through 59th Street or 58th Street or a little cul-de-sac called Pleasant or Jersey Place. Meadows Place, thank you. Most of us, and I can't speak for all of us, but I think most of us feel that the traffic going through our subdivision into the new area is going to be extreme and unbearable. It's going to tear up our streets. It's going to add a lot of traffic. We only have 2 access points onto Jersey Ridge Road, which is difficult to get onto now sometimes. Jersey Ridge Road is not in very good shape either, but that's beside the point. A lot of us feel that there should have been much better forethought in planning this a whole area with Costco last year and having access out to Elmore. Costco, as you may be aware, did not want to pay for that access street out to Elmore. The city did not want to pay for it either. And so it got removed from one of the conditions that you folks, I believe, recommended to the city council. Now, here we are a year later and we have the same issue. We don't have access to Elmore from this land area, this development area. Okay, Advanced Home does not want to pay for a street, and I don't think the councils or the city is going to want to pay for the street. So where do we go from here? So our biggest reservation, I believe, is the traffic pattern that's going to be unbearable, going just to 2 access points to the west. We need 1 access point to the east from the southeast corner of this new subdivision or this new plat. Any questions for me?
Not at this time.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Reinhardt.
This may be for Matt. Matt, how many homes are in that development right now?
Well, I know Mr. Aitchison mentioned 150. It's close to that.
Okay, thank you.
Would anybody else like to step forward?
I'm Bill Hurt. I live at 2731 East 59th Street. So one of the streets that's going to be affected by this project. I think when we all moved into this neighborhood, we realized there were dead-end streets. There was going to be something built there. The problem is the scope of this project. You're going from 150 houses to over 200 houses with only 2 access points and those access points aren't split like other neighborhoods in the city are. If you go look at the other developments in the last 20 years, most of them have at least 2, if not 3, entrance and access points, and those access points are split so that, for instance, Jersey Point, over to the west of us, when you come down to 58th Street, you can go either direction. You can go to Eastern, which is a main thoroughfare, or you can go to Jersey Ridge, or you can, snake through and go north out of that neighborhood, but I don't really consider that a separate access point. In our neighborhood, everything has to go in one direction. So everybody on 58th Street is going to be affected by that, and everybody on 59th Street is going to be affected by that. Down on Meadows Place, that's a dead end, so everything will have to turn north and come up to 59th and go out and make numerous turns to exit the neighborhood. The streets in our neighborhood are about 31 feet wide. The streets over on Jersey Point on the other side of Jersey Ridge from us are 4 feet wider, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that does aid in people who park at the curb. When you go up to Jersey Farms to the north, the first 3 blocks into that neighborhood only has 5 or 6 driveways that face onto that main thoroughfare. When you look at our neighborhood, everybody's driveway that's on 59th faces 59th. Everybody on 58th faces 58th. We already have people who put up signs to slow down the traffic because they have kids, etc. If you're going to add, 64 more houses that are going to have to funnel through there, I think the project is ill-conceived at this point. There was a time when we had an access point from where Costco is now that maybe it would have been a more feasible project, but since it's landlocked the way it is, I really think that's just too big of a development. Maybe it should be R1, or maybe there should be 3 cul-de-sacs built there with fewer homes, like maybe at least half as many homes before we were to do that.
Thank you. Is there anybody? Press your right button. Commissioner Reinhardt.
This is another question for Matt. Do you have any idea how many houses are in Prairie Heights?
No. I hate to guess
Okay.
and find out.
Thank you, Matt. Commissioner Lammers.
Matt, this is for you as well. Are there any situations like this that have had successful results that maybe could be mirrored to the concerns that are being stated here tonight, where developer doesn't want to pay, city doesn't want to pay, access is a concern? I'd be interested to know if safety departments are having any issues with just 2 accesses.
As far as building an access, a street access to Elmore.
Elmore.
Well, I would are there examples? Sure. I mean, if you want something bad enough, you can find ways to pay for it. Some of the issues with the connection to Elmore, one being is that this would have to be a bridge or an embankment style structure that would not be able to benefit from even having lots that front the street. So it would basically be a stretch of expensive pavement that would not, have lots fronting it. I believe I'll speak not too much for the council, but they deliberated the need when the Costco development came, even recognizing the commission's recommendation, chose not to pursue it at this time. Whether or not their positions would be different based on this, that would be something that I wouldn't want to answer for the council.
Okay. Are there other options? Would this concern go away if there weren't 64 homes being in this development? Neighbors or developer? If it was a smaller development, would the same concerns exist? No? Okay. Is there consideration and discussion still happening as that as an option. And I know as a business person, you have a break even, and is 64 it? Or do you have room to work together with the neighbors to try to figure out a solution that's not ultimately going to cost you potential money in the future for an access?
Yeah, based on, all the feasibility studies that we've done in the city right now, R1, which is basically what you guys are discussing, is not sought after at the current moment. So, the demand there for R1 is just not currently there right now. So, as a business decision, R2 is the best decision as far as, what the demand in the city is right now. So, R1 would probably not be, what we would be looking for. R2, that's why we came with the R2 zoning that we were requesting.
Have you had further discussions on potential to partner somehow to get an access to Elmore without just flat out saying it's not going to happen?
The access off of Elmore, as far as based on the costs that were discussed last night at the neighborhood meeting, would be a non-starter for us for the development.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Any additional people that would like to step forward and speak in opposition? If there are none, I will be closing this.
My name is still Gary Aitchison. Some more data for you maybe. I don't know what Prairie Heights, what your question is referring to, but the subdivision to our west, Crystal Ridge or whatever the name is over there, just for the record, they have 231 homes, the best I could tell from aerial views and so on, and they have 3 access points out of there, which makes it to 77 homes to an access point, if you will. We currently have 150 plus or minus a couple of homes with 2 access points, which is 75, okay, which is doable. It's still a little congested maybe, but we make it happen. With the additional 64 homes, which is a 43% increase, we're going to have 214 homes with only 2 access points, which is 107 homes per access point, which I think is above and beyond any guideline or recommendation or logical reason you want to look at. Now, Jersey Farms to the north, of course, it's a bigger area. It's R1, and that's not a deal. And Cromwell Circle, obviously, is a whole different story. So I can't compare it to anything else. That's all the data I could gather for this. So we still feel strongly that another access point needs to be made. And because of the configuration, it has to be out to Elmore. Now, there were numbers thrown around $1.5 million or $1 million to build this bridge from Elmore into the property, the PDD area, by the way. And maybe we'll talk more about that when you get to the next item on the agenda. But why are we going to zone that property PDD if there's no thoughts of ever having a street or access to that? It doesn't make sense. We all know that sooner or later that area is going to be developed for commercial, which makes business sense. They're going to be putting an access point onto Elmore at that time. Why not do it now and be done with it? You know, the same people own the property, so I would think in their future planning they would look at this and let's get it done once and done right to begin with.
Thank you. Commissioners or anybody else in the public like to speak? Otherwise, I will be closing this case. Seeing none, we will close case number. Sure.
So the concern, based on what we were looking at with we have done some research on bringing in a road from Elmore, and we're concerned based on the neighborhood meeting last night. There was some confusion on whether bringing the access from Elmore all the way over to the other subdivision. This would create a direct thoroughfare from Jersey Ridge all the way over to Elmore, which we believe would create more of a traffic concern than what we're talking about for 64 homes. it almost makes a direct shot. Basically, anybody coming off of Jersey Ridge would have access to Elmore, avoiding the lights. So we do believe that, adding that direct access off of Elmore could create a negative effect based on the traffic for the concerns of what the neighborhood is speaking of. So, it would become a thoroughfare and not just used by those 64 homes. It'd be, almost becoming a drag strip off of Elmore to Jersey.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioners, anything? Come on.
I respectfully disagree with that analysis. First of all, you have 53rd Street to go east to west, and soon we're going to have Veterans Memorial Parkway going east to west. So why in the world would anybody want to cut through a neighborhood to go from east to west? Because right now, you have to zigzag in our subdivision to get from point A to point B. And with the new layout of the plat, you have to do some zigzagging more. So I don't think that's a thoroughfare. A drag strip goes in a straight line. This is definitely not going to be that. This is maybe Daytona 500, I don't know. But it's not a drag strip. So I don't think that analysis is right. I do know a couple people in our neighborhood maybe have that feeling. And at one time I did too. Then I thought, no, it doesn't make sense to go from east to west through our neighborhood when you have 53rd Street and the new Veterans Memorial Parkway, which we're all looking forward to having. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, I feel I will be closing case number REZ 18-04, and it will be back in front of us in 2 weeks. Don't have the exact date in front of me. 15th of May. Thank you. We will move on to case number REZ 18-05, request of Pheasant Creek LLC Advance Homes for the proposed rezoning of approximately 5.55 acres from A1 Agricultural District to PDD, Planned Development District.
Again, I combined our reports, but I think for the purpose of the public hearing, needed to be open separately, so happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Matt. Commissioners, any questions at this point? Commissioner Reinhardt?
Matt, is there any plans for requiring access on that PDD section if somebody builds anything?
Right now, the property is not platted. It has frontage on Elmore Avenue. Thus, it would be eligible for development. But as I mentioned, the reason for zoning the property at this point is to basically match the comprehensive plan, which calls for regional commercial there, with additional fill and additional work. It takes a, I'll say a creative land developer, but potentially there is land there that could be combined with existing lots in the area for expansion purposes.
Okay, fine, thank you.
Would the petitioner like to step forward and discuss his petition, his case?
Yeah, once again, Adam Seitz with Advance Homes on Pheasant Creek LLC. The reason why we're here for extending the PDD is to get some, congruency on that lot that's already halfway zoned. We do not have anything slated for it now, but we figured while we were down here doing this process, it made sense to go ahead and get the zoning all to have some kind of congruency going across that land. So that's why you're seeing both of those going at the same time. This one without a site plan because the limitations that Matt and I have talked about. It would take a lot of creative work and some high dollar amounts that we're not planning on doing right now, but we'd like to make that a potential someday down the road. So while we were here doing it, we figured we'd bring that to you guys' attention as well. Thank you,
Adam. Commissioners, any questions at this time? Seeing none, thank you. Would anybody else like to speak in favor of this petition? Seeing none, would anybody like to step forward and speak in opposition? Seeing none, commissioners, any Additional questions? Commissioner Lammers?
Is there anything that states that certain square footage requires X amount of access points?
There's methods to generate data on traffic generation, and there's a lot of variables. There's the classification, the existing and anticipated traffic on Jersey Ridge, for example. You have traffic counts that are, averaged, based on, a lot of data on what a single family home will generate. Quite honestly, a larger single family home generates more traffic than a smaller home, mainly because of the number of people living there, potential drivers. That being said, there's really no magic number on saying, well, if you have 100 homes here, you need 2 points of access, and if you have 200 homes, you need 4 points of access. That doesn't exist. But as I had mentioned, we knew and know that making sure that the community is comfortable, the city is comfortable with these numbers is going to be important and will be a major part of us rendering our recommendation at the next meeting.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Commissioner Manus?
This may be more for the next meeting as well, but it seems to me like the major thing would be getting out of the development area, both the existing subdivision and the proposed new one, onto the major streets around it. And is that the type of thing you would be addressing?
I just said you have to apply every situation, but I can go so far to say, and I've got 2 engineers behind me, if not more. Maybe they're ganging up on me, but generally it is more difficult to get onto the street that carries a larger amount of traffic.
Right.
So everybody's experienced that. To pull off of a Locust Street onto Gain Street is easy. Or that's not a good example, but off of again, an arterial street onto a local rather than going from a local onto an arterial.
Is it, I remember back in the dark ages when I had a job similar to yours, people said
That was the enlightened age.
back in the dark ages, they, that a single family house can be assumed to have about 10 trips per day. Is that still something that's used or thrown
Missed
around?
it by about 1/10. It's actually
It's larger
you're
now. Okay.
short answer is you're right.
Yeah.
It's but the important number when it comes to generating traffic models is what happens in that peak hour.
Right.
So generally speaking, about 1 car per home will be generated in the peak hour. And what typically used to be 7:30 to 8:30 in the morning and 4:30 to 5:30 or 5 to 6 in the afternoon. But we're taking a look at that, and we'll have good numbers for you next week or next meeting to look at.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Manus. Would anybody else like to speak in favor or in opposition prior to me closing this case? Seeing none, we will close case number REZ 18-05, and it too will return to us on May 15th. That will conclude our public hearing for tonight. We will now have to move into our regular meeting. You are free to go if you don't want to stick around for the regular meeting. We'll start off the regular meeting with roll call, please.
Connell.
Present.
Hepner.
Here.
Ingram.
Present.
Kelling.
Here.
Lammers.
Present.
Manus. As excused. Quinn.
Here.
Reinhart's.
Here.
Tallman here. We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Tallman. Report of City Council activity, Matt.
Maybe at least one thing to mention is that the Rockingham Road corridor study, we are trying to, I'll say, craft another extension to make sure that the work that
becoming a multifaceted amount of work that will cover zoning, economic development, code enforcement, engineering, public works. We want a little bit more time to do that right. And again, as we are crafting it, it is basically implementation measures from both the older commercial corridor study and the West End focused neighborhood plan that were done recently. So work continues there.
Thank you, Matt.
That's all I got.
Secretary's report.
Second.
Secretary's report's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It will move forward as written. Report of Comp Plan Committee.
Trying to multitask here. I can tell you that the planners, myself and Ryan and Wayne and Scott, have been really working hard to get a draft back to our consultants, Camaros, that will be not only our full comments, at least at this point, on the text of the ordinance, as well as a review of a zoning map. We hope to get that to them by early next week, and the next step then will be to start strategizing about a public launch for the project. And what we envision will be to kind of take a roadshow approach, maybe have 4 stops where we would, maybe a day stop and an evening stop in consecutive days, and just try and get out in the community and get people. It's hard, but get people excited about zoning. That hopefully will be within the next several weeks.
Thank you, Matt. Zoning activity. We have case number ORD 18-01 that is being returned to us from City Council. There's some possible confusion over our intent, and it is being brought back to us with a little bit different language than we sent forward. Commissioner Tallman, would you initiate the conversation?
Case number ORD 18-01, an ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Davenport Municipal Code entitled Zoning by creating Chapter 17.41.060 entitled Elmore Corners Overlay District and establishing said district and design standards. Staff recommends the Planning and Zoning Commission forward case number ORD 18-01 to the City Council for approval, including the entire THF First Edition being part of the area subject to the proposed ECOD overlay district, and I so move.
Case number ORD 18-01 has been moved and seconded for discussion. Matt?
Thanks again, and I appreciate everybody's patience with this. It is a little confusing. I will probably look over my shoulder for some assistance from Brian to make sure that we're proceeding the way we need to. And I think the main reason why council, one of the reasons that council sent this back is that what ultimately moves forward has an impact on not only the notice area, which could trigger the 20% protest, and also the commission's recommendation, which again, a negative recommendation based on what council ultimately is looking at, could again trigger the supermajority vote by council. So again, I think another part of the confusion, I take full responsibility for this, is that at the meeting on the 3rd, I indicated that I didn't see a big issue with removing THF, and that's not the position of city staff. So I was in error in speaking to that. But quite often it's not unusual for councils to send stuff back to the Plan and Zoning Commission. It's been a long time since it's happened here, but it's not an unusual situation. But what's kind of unusual is we're trying to figure out procedurally what we do. So I think by the end of your deliberations, the council would appreciate knowing for sure what your position is, so we can do adequate notice and and they have a clear understanding. Going back just a little bit more on why staff does recommend inclusion of the property. I think, first of all, this has been a several-month process, and quite honestly, the THF's position to be taken out was kind of last minute. Not that isn't reason on itself, but that was, I think, added a little bit of confusion. I think, again, similar to the last case, we're talking about Pheasant Creek. Pheasant Creek on the south end of the Elmore Corners proposed area really provides a nice definable boundary, whereas we can apply those new standards. And then, quite honestly, retail is changing. It's a dynamic industry, to say the least, and there are still several outlots on the THF property, and potentially redevelopment of existing structures, or determining that, say, parking areas aren't necessarily needed for parking. So to think that development on the THF property is about done is maybe a bit of a stretch. So again, this is the property that we're looking at. The red is the THF First Edition. So mention that. So again, this is kind of where it gets a little bit hairy. I want to make sure, from our assistant city attorney, that the options at this point, really two different motions. Maybe it'd be easier for Brian to try to explain. Thank you.
I think the clarity that the council is seeking would require the commission to do a motion to add THF to the proposed overlay district to begin with, which will then get us back to the agenda item as it was originally proposed to the Planning and Zoning Commission the first go round. And what the council's then looking for is what your vote is as a commission if THF is included in that. But to clean it up, we have to add THF back into it.
Thank you, Brian.
See a lot of
Commissioners have any questions? Commissioner Tallman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brian, so if we wanted to make a motion and leave the THF First Edition out, is that not an option? I don't think anybody wants the boundary to go away. And I'm just speaking for myself. I don't, however the other commissioners feel, obviously they can speak for themselves. My point that I was trying to make at the last meeting was, since the vast majority of the THF property is developed, I think staff mentioned in the report there's 6 or 7 parcels remaining, and they are currently and have been under the existing site and structure zoning requirements that exist today. In my opinion, to keep the consistency of that THF development as it has been going on, is to exclude them from the larger district so they can continue kind of looking the way they do today. And then with these new requirements, then they can start on all this vacant property. I mean, I think it's a great overlay district. I don't want to see it get jeopardized, but I also don't think the THF property needs to be in there.
Okay. And that's fine, but doing nothing doesn't clarify the issue for the council as to what.
Right, but
so by adding it in, you're still free to say no to the overlay district on your vote because you think THF should be out of it, if that's what you feel, and recommend it to the council that way.
we can't make a recommendation to the city council with the district excluding.
Well, that's what you already did, correct?
That's what I thought. So I guess I'm a little confused of why it's coming back to us anyway.
Because it's not clear to the city council what this commission's recommendation would have been if THF was included in it, which is what staff and council wanted to begin with. So what we're looking for is the decision, the recommendation of planning and zoning to the city council, so we know what the vote is required at the council level with THF in the overlay district.
So And how do we do nothing? I mean, we just.
I don't think you can.
So, what,
I mean, doing nothing doesn't
I've
answer
got-
the reason it was remanded.
I'm sure a lot of other people, or I don't, other people are gonna want to talk, but I'm not done, thanks.
Commissioner Lammers.
So it sounds like it's an all or nothing proposition then? We put it back in as a whole overlay, and they're asking us to vote yes in totality of that overlay? And if we don't want that segment in, we are voting no in totality for the overlay?
I guess the short answer is correct.
And may I just ask for clarification of why they didn't understand that we were all in agreement for the overlay absent that segment? What is unclear about that?
Well, two things that Matt's already mentioned. One is the protest area, and one is what the level of vote is required at the council. Do they need a supermajority, or does a simple majority work?
So they're driving the protest rate to this decision, then it sounds like.
I don't know what you mean by that. There's
It appears that, I'm just confused because I thought it was very clear what we voted for. And to have it come back and now make it an almost all or nothing, you know, for the most part, we were in agreement that this is a good idea, minus that established development that's there with a few outlots that still need to be developed. I don't know what's unclear about that. As Commissioner Tallman was trying to state, I'm just confused of why this was sent back, and all I'm hearing is there's a consideration for a protest rate concern, and therefore it would drive the supermajority vote, and it's now become an all or nothing vote.
we're trying to avoid two issues. One is the issue of, did we notify everybody in the protest area that we were required to do, which is issue number one. And we have to dot those i's and cross those t's. And the other one is, did we have the right council vote for what P&Z's intention was? Okay, if you still think THF should not be included in this, then the vote would be no on the all or nothing, presumably. That sends the message to council that tells the council what they need to do.
Okay. I think that's a totally different vote than what we came up with last time, but my opinion.
Commissioner Tallman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brian, so looking at the notice map, the adjacent property owner notice area, the THF property was excluded. It's in our packet. I don't know if you want it.
Was excluded the first time?
No, that was the, and I should have kept one by myself, but what was distributed by Ms. Pasternak.
It's in our packet.
I'm seeing different things pointed at me. That had the THF property removed, and so the property owners within 200 feet of that, I'll say that revised, somewhat smaller boundary, were the ones that were notified of the public hearing before committee of the whole.
So if THF was included, the notifications would have to go back out, correct? Because it's
Yes.
not, okay, so I guess to answer one of your points of the large number of protests or the notification, it's going to increase if THF is included. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. I see, all right. Thank you.
Commissioner Manus.
Is the issue here that the council wants to be able to approve the larger area for the overlay district? Is that what, and they're concerned that the recommendation of the planning commission does not include a vote on the entire thing?
Well, I guess I don't presume to speak for the council. I think there are, from a legal perspective, there are two ambiguities that we're not certain what the actual recommendation from P&Z is based on what was done. And in order to avoid those ambiguities in a courtroom, we're asking that the P&Z reconsider this, which is why it was remanded by council to P&Z to address the issue of what the P&Z's position would be on the overall overlay district with THF included in that area.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Tallman?
I'm going to withdraw my motion. Yes, because if Commissioner Lammers would like to withdraw her second, because I'd like to go back to our original recommendation, which I believe takes another motion. Is that correct? What we did 2 weeks ago. I made a motion. Staff recommended approval with including the entire THF. That was my motion, and that's what we're discussing now.
I'm sorry, say that again, Dave, you lost.
So, I'm sorry, okay, the staff recommendation for today was that they recommended approval including the entire THF first edition.
Correct.
Okay, so I made the motion on that, and Commissioner Lammers seconded that.
Right.
So that's what we're under discussion. What?
Not really, because
Good, it gets even more confusing.
procedurally, council remanded it to you.
Okay,
And so council remanded to you what you sent to council, which was THF not in, right?
that's correct.
Okay, so what I'm suggesting to the commission is you need to do a motion to amend to add THF back in,
Okay.
and
Okay.
then make your vote.
Okay.
Commissioner Lammers?
And is that vote an all or nothing, yes or no? Or do we say yes with the exclusion of, which was our original vote to move forward to the council?
No, your decision, assuming you make that motion and amendment, which I'm suggesting you do, assuming you do that, then your vote is, are you in favor of the overlay district with THF included? Or are you not in favor of the overlay district with THF included? So I assume that's your all or nothing, but I don't want to.
Well, and if it is, let's say, that second vote, no, with THF or whatever included, does that mean we are saying no to the whole design overlay?
No.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Connell?
I would like to make a motion that we add THF back into the ECOD.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion that's been seconded to add THF back into the OCD. Do we have discussion at this point, or do we need a roll call, or we need a vote at this point? Okay, roll call vote then.
Clarification. Just, again, I apologize, I'm just not comprehending this right now.
It's all good.
So with the motion to add THF in, voting obviously in favor puts it in, voting against it keeps it out, and goes back as what we did 2 weeks ago.
Correct.
Thank you.
Are we all clear? Are we clear with how we're voting? Huh?
I hate to confuse things, but I did mention to Ms. Pasternak that there'd be an opportunity to speak. Of course, that's up to you.
In that case, before we move forward, we'll allow Ms. Pasternak to step forward. I'm losing my voice.
Thank you. Candy Pasternak with Pasternak Law Firm, here on behalf of THF, the developer. Under the previous PDD zoning requirements that were imposed on THF, for which they've complied throughout their development of that property. Frankly, the commission got it right. I'm uncertain why we're here. Having attended the committee of the whole meeting, one of the things that I provided for all of you to see was the notices that were provided prior to the committee of the whole meeting, which showed the area that was involved. Also, at that meeting, the motion that was sent back, according to the minutes from the meeting, was that it was sent back to planning and zoning for clarification. The recommendation that had been sent on April 4th, 2018 to the Committee of the Whole and the Council was not unclear. It was very clear. You approved the Elmore Corners Overlay District with the removal of the THF parcel. THF believes that that was the correct decision. We believe that planning and zoning was correct. We do not believe, and I would agree with staff in this regard. Procedurally, we've got a morass right now, but it's not back down here for a revote. It's not a back down here for anything other than was moved during the Committee of the Whole meeting, which is for a clarification of what this commission's intent was when it sent its recommendation to the Committee of the Whole. And your intent, I'm sorry, yes, it's in our favor, but I don't believe it was in any fashion unclear whatsoever what your intentions were. And we would encourage the commission to confirm its vote from the last time.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Roll call, please.
Connell.
This is to.
This is to add the property within the district.
Okay, my vote is yes.
Ebner.
No.
Kelly.
No.
Lammers.
No.
Manus.
Yes.
Quinn.
No.
Reinhartz.
Yes.
Tallman, no. The motion fails 3-5.
Thank you.
That concludes the zoning activity report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. It appears as though we have some future business for you to take a look at. Communications, would anybody in the audience like to speak at this point? Other business?
I think that was a potential new P&Z member that just left. I thought maybe she was here to say hello. But anyway.
Well, I introduced her.
Oh, okay.
But she has a meeting. She has to leave.
Okay. No, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Yes, you are correct. Other business? Nothing? In that case,
Move to adjourn?
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.